Um, let me go ahead and stand up for this part and switch my camera. Ooh. So today I have a parable for you that's from the Old Testament. We tend to think of parables in the New Testament, but this is an Old Testament parable. And I want to mention just a few things before I tell you a story before the parable, because the parable is a response to a very specific situation. Now, first I want to mention a place called Shechem and a place called Mount Gerizim. So a lot of things happen at Shechem from the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, all the way through. And Mount Gerizim is a mountain that's pretty close to there, and a mountain where Moses and half of the tribes pronounced blessings for faithfulness. You're also going to hear anointing, and anointing is a word that means to put oil on someone for a specific purpose, to set them aside either as holy or to make them a king. And so anybody can use oil, but this is a special ceremonial use. You'll also hear about the cedars of Lebanon. Cedars of Lebanon are a well-known forest at the time, and its wood was highly valued and used for only the most special purposes. Finally, you'll hear the word bramble, and this may not be a common, it's not a common English word, but it means kind of like a vine that forms a little low bush. They tend to be kind of thorny and open. God has them for a purpose, but they're not very useful for humans. Humans at most would use them just to put on a fire to light it quickly. You can light bramble to to help get better burning wood started. So that's just a little bit of vocabulary and places. And now for the story that comes before the parable. Jotham is the one who tells this parable. He's not so well known, but you may know his father, Gideon. Gideon is in that time of what we call the judges, but they're not really what that English word means. They are rescuers and sometimes prophets, sometimes making judgments for the people, but mostly they're military leaders who go in and help lead the people back to God and repel enemies. And Gideon did a good job with that. He did such a good job of repelling the enemies that afterwards the people of Israel said, "Please be our king and let your sons and your grandsons reign over us." And Gideon said, "Nope, I'm not going to be your king, and neither will my sons. The Lord is your king." In Deuteronomy, it says it's okay. In the book of the law, it says, yeah, it's okay to have a king. He has to be one of you. But at this time, God has not given the Israelites permission to have a king. Now, Gideon sometimes Gideon passes away, he dies, and he leaves behind 70 sons. And as you might guess, there's multiple wives involved. And one of his wives is a concubine wife, a slave wife, and she actually is from a different, lives in a different place. She lives near Shechem. And her son goes to her mother's people, goes to his mother's people and says, make me king instead of any of these 70 sons. Wouldn't you rather have somebody from your own tribe? And they say, okay. And they take some money from their pagan temple, and give him the money, and he hires no good people who go with him to his father's home, and they kill all 70 sons. Except the problem with trying to kill all 70 sons all at once is it's messy, and the youngest one manages to hide. And that's Jotham. Jotham comes out and finds out what has happened, that his brothers are all dead, except for his brother Abimelech, and that Abimelech has gone back to Shechem now to be made king over not all of Israel, but over that region. And that is where our parable is going to begin. Now, when the people told Jotham, he climbed to the top of Mount Gerizim. He raised his voice and he called to the people, "Listen to me, men of Shechem, and may God listen to you." The trees decided that they would anoint a king over themselves. So they went to the olive tree and said, "Reign over us." And the olive tree said, "Should I give up my abundance, which honors both God and man, to rule over trees?" So the trees went to the fig tree and they said, "Come and reign over us." And the fig tree said, "Should I give up my sweetness and my fruit to reign over trees?" Later, the trees went to the grapevine and said, "Come and reign over us." And the grapevine said, "Should I give up my wine that gladdens both God and man to reign over trees?" Finally, all the trees went to the bramble and said, "Come and reign over us." And the bramble said, "If you anoint me king over you, then come and find shade, refuge under my shade. But if not, then may fire come out from the bramble and destroy the cedars of Lebanon." And that's the parable that Jotham told. Who would like to try that parable? It begins with Jotham went to the top of Mount Gerizim and called out to the people.
Oh, this is a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try so we can get over this.
Oh.
Actually, by the time I get to this third tree, I'm already forgot what's the first tree. So the tree when they go to the speak to the people of Shechem, and he
Shechem.
said, the tree went to the first one is the vine, right?
Olive tree.
Olive tree.
Olive.
Okay, the first rain over us, and then the olive tree says, "Should I give up my abundance to my abundance before God and people or something?" And then the tree then went to the fig tree, also said, "Rain over us," and the fig tree said, "Should I give up my sweetness or
And
something?"
freedom.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know
then
why. But it's freedom.
yeah, and then the tree also went to the grapevine to say, "Rain over us." And then the grapevine say, "Should I give it my wine, sweet wine, or maybe that's a sweet wine?" And
Wine.
and then finally they went to brambles, and then oh my God, I already lost track. Where am I? So the bramble said yes.
Under my shade. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I just draw a blank, and then this is as much I can go.
Or
Under
send
my
out fire or something. And
or I send out fire. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Vivian. You have got the outline of it all. You got the 4 things, and now we're going to go back and go through it and just fill in some details, but you've got that outline in your head already. And I bet now so did Dongwei. So the Jotham climbed to the top of Mount Gerizim and cried out in a loud voice, "Listen to me, citizens of Shechem, and may God listen to you." The trees decided, what did they decide?
To have a king. To anoint the king.
To anoint a king over
Themselves.
themselves. So they went to the what tree?
Olive tree.
So they went to the olive tree and said, "Reign over us." And the olive tree said,
Should I give up my, I don't know what.
Abundance.
"Should I give up my abundance?"
Abundance.
And what does that abundance do? That honors both,
God and people.
yes, both God and people. To do what?
To reign over you?
Yeah, to reign over trees.
Oh, okay.
Should I give up my abundance that honors both God and man to reign over trees? Then the trees went to
Fig tree.
Fig
a
tree.
fig tree and said, "Come and
Be
Reign
our
reign
king.
over us." And the fig tree, same pattern. Should I give up
Give up
My sweet.
my sweet.
my
something.
sweetness and
And
my
freedom.
no? What does a
What?
fig tree have?
Fruit.
Fruit.
Fruits. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Should I give up my sweetness and my fruit to do what?
Fruits. To reign over trees.
Yeah, to reign over trees. Later, the trees came to
Grapevine.
grapevine and said,
Reign over me.
Reign over us.
yeah, come and reign over us. And the grapevine said,
Should I give up my wine?
My one.
that
Yes,
what
the
does that
joy.
wine do?
Joy of
Right, it
Yeah.
gladdens who?
gladness. God.
God?
And people.
Yeah, and man.
Oh,
To
Reign over you.
trees.
In the tree.
reign over trees. Finally, all the trees came to
Brambles.
the bramble and said,
Reign over us.
Come, reign over us.
"Come and reign over us." And the bramble said, "If I
anointed.
If I'm anointed king
King, yeah.
over you, then
You will come under my shade.
yeah, come and take refuge under
Oh.
my shade. But if not, then
The fire will set up.
fire will come out of the bramble.
Oh,
And what's going to get destroyed?
trees, all trees.
Trees. But the special trees. What are the special trees? The trees of Lebanon.
Trees of Lebanon.
Yeah, but if not, then fire will come out of the bramble and destroy the trees of Lebanon. So that's our parable. Now, as Jotham is standing up there on Mount Gerizim and about to call down to the men of Shechem with his murderous brother Abimelech and his men down there, how do you think Jotham might have been feeling?
Angry.
And scared, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little confused. So the Shechem, the people in Shechem, they are with that. They are the bad guy.
Yeah. Well,
No.
please, if you need any parts of that background story repeated, feel free to ask, because I know it's like this is a parable with a bonus story. So over here in a place that we're not going to bother with the name of it is all of the sons of Gideon except for Abimelech. Abimelech is from the area of Shechem. He goes to his mother's people, and they persuade Shechem to get behind him to be the king. So we don't know that they necessarily said, oh yeah, it's a great plan to kill all 70. But they decide to make him king when he comes back from having killed his 70 brothers. So they're at a tree, actually I didn't mention it, they're at a tree, a special tree at Shechem.
So Abimelech and Jotham are sort of brother too.
Yeah, they're half brothers,
Okay.
same father, different mothers.
Okay.
But for some reason, this son lives separate from, he was not raised with his brothers. And he's
Okay.
the son of a slave, sort of. Not of a wife, but a slave wife.
Okay.
Yeah. Which would generally not lead you to be king in that kind of a society.
Hmm.
So what do you think he's thinking?
Who is he?
Jotham, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Poor feeling. We said scared,
Mhm.
angry.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
go,
he don't understand why the people will choose that one to be the king.
yeah, it's confusing. Why would somebody choose this guy? And then here's our parable. Now, Jotham said, listen to me, men of Shechem, that God may listen to you. The trees decided to anoint a king over themselves. The trees went to the olive tree and said, reign over us. And the olive tree said, should I give up my abundance that honors both God and man to reign over trees? How do you think that the people of Shechem, the citizens of Shechem, what impact would it have on them that he says, listen to me, men of Shechem, that God may listen to you?
It sounds. This is very complicated English for a foreigner. But then it sounds like he's saying like he is speaking from God, or like
yeah.
he has some sort of authority. So that's how he get their attention. Like if you listen to me,
Yeah.
then I will listen to you.
Yeah, he called for the attention.
Okay. That's what my friend said Monday. So I was kind of confused by this part. And so I just threw it out here at you ladies and like, yeah.
We're
Now,
3 Chinese.
sometimes it does not matter if it is your first language. Sometimes y'all think it's a language thing. It's not. Now, what impact do you think it would have on the citizens of Shechem when they hear Jotham comparing them to trees?
It's a tree. It's not tree of Lebanon. It's just trees, right?
Just trees.
Just trees.
Mm.
Good,
It's just a parable.
bad.
Maybe at the beginning they don't know that
Mm.
he's talking about them. He
Oh,
just
I bet they do.
okay. He just gave a parable and all trees. That doesn't mean that's referred to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're going to have to figure out who it's about. What could Jotham have chosen to use instead of trees?
Use animals. Feels like that's more.
Sheep.
Yeah, cattle. I think that's things that can move and actually have sort of emotion with trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would personally, if they just killed all my brothers, I would call them dogs.
Yeah, trees like
That would be quite offensive.
because
That was
animals.
my plan. They just killed all my brothers.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
because animals you have, I for me, animal you can value them. Okay, sheep is this, and they have more personality than. But then it's because I'm not a gardening person, so I don't know trees.
And that's interesting. And what do y'all think about it? That
Hmm.
you think it's intentional that he's picked something that's not so animate?
I think pick any kind of vegetable, not a tree. Like it is, because I remember guy like olive tree is very prominent or very
Yeah,
like the tree in the Bible, right? Olive tree, fig, those are
Those are
very
good. Yeah.
figurative. They
right.
relate or vine, they relate you to something. So
Yeah, and I didn't go into that, and I probably wouldn't choose this if it weren't a group of people with some acquaintance of the Bible. But yeah, trees seem to be symbolic of what in general?
Some good things.
Like life.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
more
Someone.
life, right? Trees
Mhm.
tend to live a lot longer than a lot of
Yeah.
other things in nature, often way longer than humans.
Right.
So the trees decided to anoint a king over themselves. What might we learn about the trees that they decided to do that?
That is ridiculous. Because there's no reason for them to have a king. That's just make no sense. For them, there's no need for them to have a king.
Mm. What impact do you think it might have on these Shechemites who are listening? Do you think they've decided now that this might be them?
They're insane.
Maybe, yeah. If he saying like annoying the king, then they might make the correlation of what the killings.
Oh, yeah.
And then, what happened with Abimelech.
That's what we're here for.
Mm.
Yeah, but wow, what do we learn about them that they decided to pick a king? What could they have done instead?
They don't need a king. Why do they need to pick a king?
Yeah.
Trees. Why do trees need king?
Yeah. or the people of God.
They have a king already.
I have a king already. Ooh, yeah. One thing, little note that I forgot to mention. Everyone who is anyone has a king. Every little, city, people group out there around them, everybody else has a king. All the other kids have kings, but I forgot to mention that. So now the olive tree responds, should I give up my abundance that honors God and man to reign over trees? Wow. What do we learn about the olive tree by its response?
They have that sense of God. I mean, they're not just trees.
In what way does it have a sense of God?
Yeah, because he mentioned God in his response.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Abundance in God, and yeah.
And he also, and the olive trees. I'm thinking, why can't you do both? So apparently to the olive tree, you either honor God and people or you rule. It's something that you cannot do. You cannot have both.
What do you think you learn about what might we learn about the olive tree that he chooses to ask it as a question instead of making a statement? What effect do you think it would have on the trees that he asks a question and the olive tree, I'm going to call them he's, yeah, they're trees.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of personifying them, so I'll call them he's. That the olive tree makes it a question. Should I give up my abundance that honors both God and man to reign over trees?
Because the answer is very clearly no.
No.
But I think that question will also remind other trees to think about themselves. Are they giving up something to have a king?
What do y'all think?
Is it
Is the olive tree telling them that they shouldn't ask for a king because he doesn't want to be their king, right?
Right.
So,
He doesn't want to pay the price. Should I give up my?
Yeah, he doesn't want to give up something.
Yeah. That he sees as better than being a king. What do you think that you learn about him? That honoring God with his oil, honoring God and man with his oil, seems like a better deal than
to be a king. Wow.
What does that show us about the olive tree?
I think the tree knows what he was meant to be or meant to do, to produce oil, to produce olive oil instead of reigning over other trees.
Yeah, he was created to do that. He was not created to be the king.
But he knows his purpose.
Yeah.
Then the trees went to the fig tree and said, "Come and reign over us." And the fig tree says, "Should I give up my sweetness and my fruit to reign over trees?"
Still the same, I think, like olive trees. He knows his purpose of being created, not to be the king.
Yeah. You think Shechem is starting to hear the pattern?
Uh-huh.
Mhm. If you're Shechem, do you want to give up your olive trees and your fig trees?
Why? What good question.
If you're Shechem, would you want to give up your olive tree or your fig tree?
For what?
Something, anything. I just throw that out there. Now, what do you think the men of Shechem, the people of Shechem, might be thinking that the trees, erase that, erased. So what does it show us about the trees that they went to the olive tree and the fig tree? What kind of choices are these for King?
Tall and big.
So they probably already, the trees, the regular trees, already thinking the olive tree and the fig trees are better than them, than themselves.
Yeah, they know what is good.
Mm. Later, the trees went to the grapevine and said, "Come and reign over us." And the grapevine said, "Should I give up my wine that gladdens both God and man to reign over trees?" What might we learn about them, that the trees, that they come to a grapevine? Anything kind of different about this one? The same?
Here, it is not tree.
It's not. What do you think that means, Dongwei?
Because it's just I remember I watched the movie. It's just like bushes, very short. Yeah, like the Napa, right? Valley of
Napa
Napa.
Valley, they grow them on trellises so that they will be about shoulder height to a bit higher, but they don't do that unless you support them. So a lot of times you see them, you can't see the wires, but we grew grapes the whole time I was a kid. And I picked the last grapes from my parents' house just before I sold it. Okay. You can also grow them, you can grow them up over, but that's pretty much just done for homes. Commercially, grow them, and we had ones that were more viney, and they're sturdier. Those California ones are different from the varieties that the table grapes we ate. We had grapes that were just for eating, not for making wine. But yeah, they're more like a vine. They get like a little shrub maybe. So wow, what do you think that shows? That they're not even going to a tree, they're going to a vine.
They're going to a different kind, like biologically speaking, like species kind. They are going to like outside of their own category.
Yeah. I think kind is a good biblical word. I mean, that's the word before all the science we have, they often.
Yeah. I just want to say it's not a norm. I'm not saying it's different from like normally I say, oh, this kind, that kind. It's the kind.
Yeah.
Category.
Yeah. What's still the same? Is anything you see still kind of the same?
It's still plant.
Beneficial for others.
Yeah. I mean, wine's generally viewed as like good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Does the trees think that they are nothing because they have no fruit, so they want the other thing?
Yeah, they're like regular trees. I don't know what. So they go to the vine, and the vine says, "Should I give up my wine that gladdens both God and man?" Mm-hmm. What do we learn about that spiritual perspective of the vine?
Same as the previous two. He knows his purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah. He won't trade it for anything.
Mhm.
And I think for all of the three olive tree, fig, and vine, they all value like serving God or offering something to God
Mm.
better than ruling over the
Yeah.
reigning over the trees.
Finally, all the trees came to the bramble and said, "Come and reign over us." And the bramble said, "Ah, if I am anointed king over you, then come and take refuge under my shade. Or if not, fire will come out of the bramble and destroy the trees of Lebanon."
So bizarre.
What do we learn about the trees that they come to the bramble?
They just don't give up.
They must have really low self-view.
Yeah.
I forgot what is bramble. Is it not so?
Is like wheat vines
Oh,
kind of form like a bush.
Oh.
So they're viney, but probably the thickest parts are maybe, like that. And they all
mm-mm.
have thorns for self-protection. You'll find little birds and things, little small animals will go and, live under there. But as I said, for humans, they're mostly just kind of a pain. And you might, if you're out somewhere, you've had some that are dead, cut them off and use them to start a fire, not to have a fire, but just to, the little wood that you use to put on the bigger wood to get it started, or to put under it to get it started.
Mm-mm-mm.
So they come to, so what do we learn about the trees? What else? So y'all just said, they just won't give up. Anything else we learn about the trees?
They just choose whatever, whatever can be their king.
Yeah.
Yeah. What seems to be that step? What's the step from grapevine to bramble? Is there any similarity between them? Difference?
Bramble doesn't have anything good coming out of bramble. It doesn't have fruits, or I don't know, does it? It doesn't produce anything.
Yeah, no oil, no fruits.
Yeah, they have purposes in God's kingdom. I'm not saying, I'm not dissing bramble, but in terms of usefulness, not so much. No.
Mhm.
Any similarities to the grapevine?
You said they're also kind of vine, right?
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I googled the prickly scrambling vine or shrub, especially a blackberry or other white shrub of the rose family.
Or like shrubs.
Yeah, so your blueberries and your blackberries, they grow on those kinds of shrubs. But here it would be the kind that doesn't have a fruit. Which you've probably seen. You've been out in the woods, maybe you saw some trees and you were thinking, oh, I'd like to go. Oh, that's in the way. I can't get there. That's in my way. And they might even be in the US, they'll grow taller probably than in an arid area. Wow. Now, what do we learn about the bramble by his response? If you anoint me king over you, come and take refuge under my shade.
But does he have a shade?
It doesn't have shade.
Oh, everybody need to bend down to be able to under the shade.
Can the trees get
All
under?
the tree.
No.
Is it real shade?
No.
No, they tend to be kind of open plants.
Yeah, it's a empty promise.
Mhm. What do you think? Do you think the bramble knows? Or do you think the bramble is kind of self-deluded?
Could be both.
Looks like Bramble is very prideful that he can do a lot.
Oh,
That he can-
yeah. He thought he could do that.
It's not just the shade. He says, come and take refuge in my shade. So what all is he offering? He's offering shade, but also what?
Refuge.
Protecting, yeah, protect.
Security.
What
Protection.
do you think about that?
Yeah.
I think Bramble knows that the trees are stupid, so he can say anything.
Yeah.
If they're coming to me for yeah, sure, I can offer you all these great things.
He could protect all the trees. That's incredible.
Oh, isn't it though? What impact do you think this might have on the men of Shechem and Abimelech?
They've already, what? Are you speaking we are stupid?
I think they realize that now. Because that's ridiculous for Bramble to protect all trees.
Oh, protect you, get a mission. But if not, if you don't choose me, right? But if not, then fire will come out of the bramble and consume the cedars of Lebanon. What do we learn about the bramble?
He's trying to scare them. He's bluffing.
Explain what you mean by bluffing.
I think like the sentence before he said you can take refuge, like he knows they're stupid, so he just make trying to scare them now, like, oh yeah, if you don't, you're gonna get burned. Even though like I don't know how he can have fire come out. Like makes no sense.
What would happen if he did catch fire?
He will burn himself too. Will he?
Oh, that's a tree.
Catch your, bramble. What have we said bramble's good for?
Starting a fire.
Fire, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the purpose to use tree.
So the fire will come. Yes, don't we? Go ahead and explain.
Yeah, because I thought that's the purpose to use trees for this parable instead of animals. I think trees could get fire. It burned.
Looking towards that. Jotham is pretty slick to, have just lost all of his brothers. His life's in danger, and he comes up with this. That's a bright boy, I think. To come down to this destruction. This is where we're gonna go all along. What do you think? You said he's deluded. He doesn't have any shade to offer. He doesn't have any protection to offer. He's a little deluded. He's going to kill himself. It says the bramble will give forth fire. Hey, that's you, bud. And will destroy the cedars of Lebanon. Truth or delusion? What do you think?
Could be truth, because if you start a fire, then even if you're a cedar of Lebanon, you get burned.
The best people in Lebanon.
Is it going to kill? Is a bramble fire going to kill the trees? Destroy them? In the western part of the United States, we have large trees that the underbrush regularly catches fire and runs through. But if there's not too much stuff under the trees and you have the big mature trees, that just clears out the stuff that's on the ground.
Oh.
And in fact, some of the flowers out there need fire to bloom. Fire is actually what activates them. In the South, here, well, I went down to Georgia in the spring, and we went to this place where they have some of these forests that are open that have had the fires, and there's just these big pine trees. Not the super big trees like the ones out in the West, but these are trees that are, I don't know, 100 years old or something. Big trees, but there's other areas that have been cut. Trees have grown back, but not the way the natural trees grow. And so there's too many trees. So they went in, they cut out trees, hauled those out, then did a fire to get rid of the low stuff, because there's a bird called the red cockaded woodpecker.
Mm-hmm.
And it only likes mature pine forests with an open canopy and not a lot of stuff on the ground.
Mm.
So open canopy means you've got some big trees, but you don't have all these trees with their leaves blocking all the light. That's what the red cockaded woodpecker likes. I spent a couple of hours looking for that little bird and didn't see one. So in the US, we have that, that those trees don't get harmed because that fire is quick and just runs through.
Okay.
Is that what we're talking about? Or
No.
are we talking about the bramble actually destroying the cedars of Lebanon? I do not have an answer, but I just put that out there as some tree knowledge that I have, but I'm not sure what's going on here.
Interesting.
So in the story, we saw that the olive tree and the fig tree and the grapevine were all offered the temptation to be something they weren't designed to be. They all knew their purpose. Does that happen today, that people get tempted to do something that's different from their purpose, but they're able to recognize it and choose to stay with what God designed them for? What do you think that looks like? What are some of the temptations that people are tempted to go towards, and the purpose that they stick with?
Higher pay, that's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if they think their value was in terms of the money, yeah, then they will look for that. But if they know their value or identity is children of God, then that probably is not that tempting. Yeah.
I think sometimes novelty and sometimes status. I had been a teacher for a long time, and I had this opportunity to apply for a position that was just a little different. I've been doing the same thing for a long time. So I sent in my resume to my boss. I mean, she knew it already. I just had to give it to her. And then I went in, and we're in the middle of talking about it. And I go, what was I thinking? I don't want to do that. That involves administration. I am wretched at administration. And she said, but yeah, I'm going to get up and leave because we're just wasting your time and mine. Never mind. Take my name out of the pile. But, you know, I had, and the woman who did it, it was much better fit. She liked doing that, and she had a young kid, and it meant less time on campus. So it worked. She was partly doing it, not because she loved it, but it facilitated her being a working mom better.
Yeah, but I feel like unfortunately in the corporate world, or even regular like secular job, the the progression is usually, or if you do good, then you start managing people. You become, you have to delegate, so you start managing. But then some people are just good at doing, be hands-on, but then they're being pushed to, now you get a promotion, you have to manage people. Like, I want to do things, I don't want to manage people.
Yeah. I found that in my field of ESL, that the people don't really like teaching that well. They go into
What?
the teachers end up going into the management in my field, but they're using the people that like that environment. They're like, I love these ESL teachers are fun. I like the students. I see how my boss does it. I could do it better. Oh, she's leaving. Yeah, I'd rather do that. So it often happens, I find, in my field that the people are just not that wed to teaching, but they found they like that environment. So that's a good thing. Like, you do that, because that's just nasty. I don't care how much more money you pay me. What a wretched thing to do. Scheduling all the teachers, telling them what they're having them come and say, oh, but I wanted this. Oh, but I wanted that. Can I have this class? What about in your own life? Have you, or maybe you've seen someone up close experience this temptation and then retreat from it and choose the good? And not just in work, maybe even in ministry, in family. I just see a lot of young women having to make that choice between career and family and trying to decide what's my purpose at this stage in my life, and really having to listen to God about what is it you want from me now. I have to give up something. It may not be that you choose motherhood or career, but that the balance is something that women seem to always be working with to see, what's the good you want me to provide that blesses God and people.
Actually, I'm thinking about Jesus. Like, a lot of people will ask him for healing, but he knows that he comes not only for healing, but for preaching. So sometimes he will just say no to others because he knows his purpose.
Yeah, it's when you started it with Jesus, I thought you were going to go to where often they want him to stay in one place.
Uh-huh.
No, I'm not
Yeah.
put in one place. I'm here to preach in all these different towns.
Yeah.
Both are true.
Yeah, to me, that's just when we know our purpose, it's very easy to say no. When we don't, then it's hard.
Well, let me pray for us.